William Robinson was born in Lower Merion, Pennsylvania on June 11, 1945. William Robinson and his brother Jay Robinson were born to Dorothy and William Robinson Sr. Both William Robinson Sr. and Dorothy worked as draftsmen. Mr. Robinson was a high school student before he was in the military and enlisted in the Air Force during the Vietnam War. He was just 17 years old. Mr. Robinson chose to enlist in the Air Force because
the Air Force, it was more of what I was looking for. I was basically a mechanic, and I didn't want to work on tanks or stuff like that. I wanted to work on aircraft.
the Air Force is generally thought of to consist of pilots that fly in planes to engage in battle, but there are other sides to the Air Force. Mr. Bill Robinson spent his time in the Air Force serving as an aircraft mechanic. Mr. Robinson did not want to be in the Marines or the Army for his service, and he had interest in mechanics previously, leading him to choose his military position. The first of many plunges that Mr. Robinson had to take into his military life was the execution and completion of basic training. Mr. Robinson went to Lackland Air Force Base in Texas to complete his basic training. Basic training lasted for about 6 or 8 weeks. Mr. Robinson stated that the majority of what was done during basic training was calisthenics. At 17 years old, moving from home to basic training was quite a shock.
It was a big change. It was more strict, and you had to keep account of things.
After Mr. Robinson completed his time in basic training, he had to go on to specialized training for aircraft mechanics. Specialized training lasted for about 2 months for Mr. Robinson. During his time in specialized training, Mr. Robinson learned how to work on aircrafts with over 2 engines and learned how to work on basic jets and aircrafts. There were also many specific subjects that specialized training focused on.
We had a lot of training in, like, when you went in and you learned about aircraft mechanics, you had to go to different sections. You go to a school in hydraulics. You'd have to go to school in framing. We had to go to school on engines. You know, it's just, you had to go to school for every particular thing you worked on.
Okay.
You were constantly in school.
The specialized training that Mr. Robinson had to undergo would allow him to be able to easily and productively work on the aircrafts during his service. Next, Mr. Robinson moved on to his time serving as a mechanic. Mr. Robinson had many duties during his service.
As far as aircraft mechanic, we had to be able to work on just about everything: hydraulics, engines, frames, wheels. You know, it's just a variety of. And I worked actually on the flight line, and I was assigned to a Pacific aircraft. And when that plane came back, we had to go in and completely check it over. If we found a problem, we had to either take care of it or call a specialty shop.
To check out the planes to make sure they were in working order, they would fly around the base with the plane to determine any problems. Mr. Robinson worked on C-130s most often during his service. He worked on C-130s for about 3 years, and his favorite part of working on them is the challenge he would face working on those planes. On the C-130 Hercules,
Like if you would have a hydraulic problem or something like that, or frame problem, if you had a hard landing, you'd have to check out the structure of it to make sure there's no cracks and stuff like that.
Mr. Robinson earned some medals during his service. He earned both the Marksman Award and the Award for Good Conduct. The award that Mr. Robinson was most proud of receiving was the Marksman Award. To earn this reward, a test would have to be taken every year to show proficiency in shooting skills. Learning to shoot was a skill that the mechanics had to learn in order to be prepared if anything out of the ordinary should happen on the base. When asked how he felt when earning his Marksman Award, he said,
Oh, I like that, especially the rifles. I like that. I like guns.
Receiving these awards was one of the experiences that Mr. Robinson was most proud of. Mr. Robinson came home to a support system of friends and family after he departed from the military. He was received by his friends and family quite well. Although his family accepted him well, Mr. Robinson had to adjust to life quietly without telling anyone of his military service, for fear of being reprimanded by others.
When I was in training and stuff, but when the Vietnam War the Vietnam was going on, we were told not to wear our uniforms off base because it was very dangerous.
Because of this reality, Mr. Robinson was afraid to tell anyone that he had served in the Vietnam War. Mr. Robinson went on to go into mechanics after he departed from the military. Mr. Robinson hopes that people realize that no matter how some people feel about the Vietnam War, the men who served deserve respect and recognition.
Go into the military. It'll make you a better person. It really will. It really, really, really will. It's really, really a better education than going to school. It's a life education.
Mr. Robinson's hope is that more people in the future join the military and fight for our country. Thank you for your service, Mr. Robinson. Our country thanks you. Today, tomorrow, and always.